that said, I also have a pretty large home repair and remodeling company, and we use the same basic systems when we go out and sell $30,000 bathroom remodels in person that we do when we sell home cleaning over the phone to consumers. So the techniques are basically the same, but it is very focused on business to consumer sales. You can apply some of that to business, but because there is a mixed group, I just want to make sure people know, because I don't want anyone to feel like they're in the wrong room. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of background on me. I used to work for Procter & Gamble Professional, where I worked for 13 years, and then about a little home cleaning company in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I left. And I grew it to be one of the biggest ones in the country. And then somebody who was doing a roll-up knocked on my door with me. I don't know if you know what a roll-up is, but that's where somebody's trying to buy a bunch of companies and turn it into a big company down to the public. And so I was able to sell my company. I bought and sold a bunch of different cleaning companies. Right now, my wife and I own 2 companies, home cleaning companies in Fort Collins, Colorado. Which I don't know if you're familiar with Fort Collins, it's about this big. And we do about $4 million in revenue between our 2 companies in Fort Collins. I also, as I mentioned, have a home repair and remodeling company. Does about another $2 million in revenue. My brother owns a big company in Dallas. My sister-in-law owns a big company in Denver. So it's kind of funny when we get together for Thanksgiving dinner and talk about nothing but home cleaning. And I used to own home cleaning companies in Cincinnati, Portland, Atlanta, and Dayton. But I sold them all recently because I'm trying to simplify my life a little bit. It's kind of funny to go through phases. At one point you're building the empire, and then eventually you're selling the empire and getting ready to kind of retire and move to a different stage of life. So that's just a little bit of background on me. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about sales in this particular year is when the economy starts to slow down, sales becomes the most important position. For a long time there, sales for us, especially with COVID, was fish in a barrel. It was all about how quickly could we get cleaners. It really wasn't about sales because it was so easy to sell. But when an economy starts to go bad, the salesperson becomes the most important person in the company. And this was actually some advice that I originally got from my dad. Because I was graduating college and I was looking to get my first job. And I asked my father for advice on what I should do, and he said I should go into sales. And not all of you know me. I see a few people I know, but it's been a few years since I've been one of these. And I was like, Dad, I don't know if it's confused, but Sean, my brother's the popular one. I'm the geeky kid who reads comic books. And I don't see how sales is a very good career choice for me because I don't really like people very much, Dad. And I don't, if you meet me at a party, I'm a little awkward, but I am. And he basically told me, hey, listen, you're always going to have to be selling. If you're not selling a thing, you're selling an idea, you're selling something else. You'll have to sell yourself, your idea, and sales is one of the 4 key life skills you're going to need to be successful. That was part of this pitch, is there's 4 things you're going to need in life to be successful. One of them is sales. If not selling a service or a product, you're going to have to sell your boss an idea. You're going to have to sell the girl that you're dating that she should marry you. You're going to be selling for your entire life, kid. So you might as well learn now his advice. And he also told me that he'd been through the recessions of the 70s and everything else. And he said a good salesperson, not an average salesperson, but a good salesperson will always have a job. The person who makes the revenue comes in a bad economy is never fired. In a good economy, it's an easy job. You get promoted really easily. So that was his pitch on why I should go into sales. If I can sell, I'll always be able to feed myself, and I'm always going to need to be able to sell. And I told him, all right, well, I get all that, but remember once again, Dad, I don't really like people. And I'm not the backslapping type. And he said, hey, real sales isn't the car salesperson. It isn't even, I get a lot of videos on my Facebook feed now from this guy who's talking about how to change your emails, to change your power dynamics with your customers, and all that type of stuff. And it's none of that stuff. It's really about listening to a customer, understanding what the customer needs, and explaining how your product does or does not meet their needs. And he said, real sales should sometimes tell people, we are not the right people for you, and here's why. You shouldn't always be selling everything to everyone. In sales is also a process. It's not a natural God-given talent. Once again, if you meet me at a party tonight, I'm going to be super awkward because I don't watch TV very much. I don't do sports. I pretty much talk about my kids, comic books, and business. So if you're not talking to me about the cleaning business, well, I have nothing to talk about. But it's a process, and it can be taught, it can be done. So, and probably the most important thing in a good salesperson is that they can have empathy, listen, and understand everything. And I stole this quote from Mark Cuban, and I loved it because it seemed to back everything up that my dad ever told me, which was learn to sell. In business, you're always selling. Your prospects, investors, employees. To be a salesperson, put yourself in the shoes of the person with whom you're selling. Don't sell your product, solve their problem. And that's all the exact same stuff my dad told me when I was 18 years old. And that's how I ended up at Procter & Gamble selling Dawn to J&J distributors. Knocking on doors and selling Dawn for 13 years. So one of the things that I took from my time at Procter & Gamble in these next phrases, which P&G had something they called the moments of truth. And at Procter & Gamble, we said there are 3 moments of truth to focus on. And I do think that's true in our business too. And the first one is the first moment of truth, which is basically when somebody decides to use your product or your service. Obviously, we're mostly service industry today. And marketing is the stimulus, search engine optimization, everything else. But choose is sales. So choose is when somebody convinces somebody to give your product a try. And we call it the first moment of truth because that's the first time when all the theory comes down to, are you actually able to get someone to buy? And I'm actually coaching the industry, and I run into this a lot, where people are telling me things like, oh, I've got to get a uniform, I've got to get business cards, and I have to do all these things so I'm a real business. You're a real business when you sell something that somebody else buys. Up until then, you're playing air guitar and making stuff up. So that's why it's called the first moment of truth, because that moment when somebody decides, it's one of those key moments you need to be focused on as a company. Second moment of truth is when somebody uses your service and decides whether or not they like it. Now, in our industry, I find that the first 3 months is the most likely when you're going to lose a customer. And I also used to own a commercial cleaning company, and it's the same there. And the reason why is what I call the small sample size problem. If you have worked with somebody for years and somebody doesn't show up, you're a good company, not a bad day. If it is your second time servicing them and you're late, you are a terrible company. So it's really important that, especially those first 3 months, that honeymoon period, the service to be almost perfect. And then it's also really important that expectations are met, which is part of what sales has to do with the second moment of truth. It's really easy to sell if you tell the customer they get everything they want. It's a little harder to sell when you're trying to manage expectations. And the person I work with, Debbie Sardone, in the coaching business, the first time I went to go visit her business, I was actually kind of appalled because I'm classically a salesperson. Debbie's team would sell these customers on the phone, and then as soon as they would say yes, they literally flip the page and go, great, let me tell you all the things we're not going to clean anymore. And they started to read this long list of, we're not going to go into your bed, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this, we do not do dishes, we do, and went down this long list, and I was like, oh my God, that's terrifying. Because as a salesperson, I'm like, what are you trying to do, scare people away? But she was just trying to manage expectations of, I want you to make sure that the service we deliver is what you're expecting. So that's kind of where salespeople play a role in the second moment of truth. And then the third or ultimate moment of truth is when somebody decides whether or not they like or hate your customer, their service enough to tell the rest of the world. And so the first moment is when they decide to use your product. The second moment of truth is when they actually have an experience and decide, am I happy with this or not? And the third and ultimate moment of truth is when they decide whether or not they want to share that experience with the world. And that can either be good, neutral, or negative. We've all had some negative judgment. So those are the 3 moments of truth, and I talk about them a lot in all of my companies and get very focused on it. Like I said, even in my home remodel, how do we sell the customer? How do we make sure the experience of us ripping out the bathroom is as enjoyable as it can be? And how do we try to get that referral on the back end? Exact same thing, entirely different businesses. So, in sales, you're always going to be fighting a little bit for control with your customer. And that's okay. For people to be comfortable, they want to feel like they're in control. You need to be in control of the process, but you should let your customer control the speed. And what I mean by that is you're the expert. The customer should allow you to ask the questions you need to ask in a certain order. But you also need to let them take as long as they need and ask whatever questions they need so they can get comfortable. So if they won't let you control the process, that is a really bad sign. That means they're going to be a difficult customer. Honestly, you might not want the sale. If they won't even let you go through the process of asking the questions you need to ask without them cutting you off, you don't understand. I just want, honestly, might not be a very good customer. Now, explain to the customer the reason why. I always say explain why you're asking for things. So don't just ask questions. We always say things like, hey, I need to get your email address because I'm going to send you an estimate later on. I need to know how many square feet your house is because 3-bedroom, 2-bath, the 2,400 square foot house is very different than the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 5,000 square foot house. same basic number of rooms, but I need to get that to scale. Some people are going to book right away. Let them. This was actually one of the funniest things in my early years of Procter & Gamble. They taught us this really big long spiel on Don. Hello, I'm here today to talk to you about Don. And sometimes the customer would say, oh yeah, I know Don, I want to buy it. And I want to complete my spiel. And my sales person says, the minute the customer says yes, you go, great, let's get the order. So if you've got somebody who wants to go quickly, let them go quickly. Now, if you have something like Debbie, where you do explain what's delivered in the service, they need to let you do that, but stop selling. We've all had the experience where we're ready to buy and the person won't stop selling, and it really quickly gets annoying, and you feel like they're not listening to you. And now a service you wanted to buy, you're not sure you want to use anymore, because they're not listening to you. Now I don't want to work with you. So let them control the speed, but they need to let you control the process. Okay? That way both sides can be covered. All right. I'm going to talk some more generic things, but these are some very specific examples. I really hate these phrases, and there's reasons why. No problem. I really hate the phrase no problem. I've trained all my salespeople to stop using them. It is a problem for the customer. That is why they brought it up. When you say no problem, that can seem like you're saying it's not important, it doesn't matter. So we always train our people never to say no problem. It's things like, sure, we can do that. My pleasure. So never say no problem. I hate the phrase company policy. My people are forbidden to use the phrase company policy. It makes you sound like a bank. It makes you sound like an insurance company. It makes you sound like one of those terrible organizations that people hate to work with. Now, you have policies, and it's important that your people enforce them. So we always say it's important they explain the reason why. The reason why we don't do this is these 3 reasons. But they're never supposed to say, I'm sorry, our company policy is monthly customers can only book on Monday and Tuesday. We put all the monthly customers on the same 2 days so that it makes better scheduling, better so we get paid. We explain the reason why. We don't deal with any type of human waste because technically, according to OSHA, that is a biohazard. We need protective equipment we don't have. You don't just say, I'm sorry, company policies, we don't touch that. Oh, I wish we could. OSHA says our food is a biohazard, therefore I need to have level 3 protection, which my people don't have. Therefore, we can't. So my people are forbidden to use the phrase company policy. I really hate the phrases trust me and let me be honest with you because what I've been lying before. That is my least favorite phrase when I'm coaching people. And then I don't like basically, simply, or obviously. It's all very similar to no problem. It can come across as condescending. Basically what we're going to do. Obviously, once again, it might be obvious to you because you're in this industry, but the customer would be vast if it was basic, simple, or obvious to them. So those are phrases just real logistically simply, we try to stay away from. All right, this talks about phone demeanor, but it's basically the same for in-person demeanor. Smile, people really can't tell. I know it's cheesy, and some people tell you to set up the mirror and smile, but it's true. Amplitude, we want you to be loud, we want you to be heard, but we don't want you to shout. Acoustics, please, for the love of goodness, no speakerphones. I don't know what it is about recently, and it's not a generational thing because old people do it too now. Everyone wants to talk on their speakerphone, and I'm sorry, the acoustics are terrible. Your salesperson should never ever do that. I can't tell you the number of times I've had to create it. Also, location meters. I was doing some sales audits for somebody recently, and I was talking to the owner, and I said, so I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm 95% sure she was in the bathroom when she was quoting. Because I can tell, and I'm pretty sure she was in the bathroom. And the owner got back to me and said, I'm pretty sure she was too. Just because it had that lovely echo that you only ever hear in the bathroom. Pace, this is tricky for me. I talk fast. So not too fast, not too slow. Once again, try to match the speed of the customer. If you get somebody who's like me and a fast talker on the phone, you can talk a little faster. If you get somebody like my ex-wife, you're going to need to slow down because they just don't know what's going on. Pitch, upbeat, excited. How you can make their day better. Heartfelt desire to help, I think, is important and comes across. And then I like gentle, comfortable nudges for closing. We'll get to that in a little bit. And I think it's really important mostly to use your own personality. I don't use scripts or encourage scripts. Now, I do have a form that my people fill out. There is a logical series of questions that we have to ask, but I want my people to be able to use their personality, I know, because it is way more authentic than somebody reading a script. So, once again, the form isn't a script. It's questions they have to ask, but how they phrase it, I'm okay that my people sound a little bit different on the phone. Probably the easiest way for me to explain the phone demeanor part or the in-person demeanor, and I don't know if my father taught me this or my sales training at Procter & Gamble, but I've always loved this phrase, is that sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. So your job is to transfer your enthusiasm and belief that you work for the greatest company in the world and your company can make them happy to the person you're talking to over the phone. So all this stuff like smile, be perky, match, have good acoustics, is you need to sound like you are happy and you are excited to be here because they are about to hire you. And honestly, more than almost anything else, that makes the biggest difference. Recently, I had a coaching call where I had about 70 people on the call, and we were reviewing the calls of one of my salespeople. And he actually screwed up some pretty serious stuff, including at one point the customer said her husband had just died. He was like, oh. And so the price will be, it like missed the fact that, she just said her husband died. But he has about an 80% close rate. One of the reasons why is on every call, he's just perky and happy and excited. He wants to help people out, and people genuinely like him. And I think that makes a big difference, and that's what a lot of what this meeting on the phone meeting is. We're trying to transfer your enthusiasm and belief in the company to your customer. This is also why I don't like salespeople to deal with customer complaints, because I really don't want my salespeople drugged down. I don't want my salespeople getting off the call and going, oh, we really messed that up, and then have to pick up the next call like, hey, yeah, we're a great company. So I want my salespeople at a low level of happiness, and I try to keep them there. So now, logistically, if your company's not big enough, that's not always a choice. But my preference is that my salespeople live in a low level of happiness when we are the world's greatest company. And it's true, we mess up sometimes, but we try to. All right. I also think it's really important when dealing with consumers to make a personal connection with the customer. This is why I don't like a lot of the traditional sales stuff. I've been trained by the best people in the world on overcoming objectives. I've been through all the sales classes on, when somebody says, I need to talk to my husband, oh, you're not allowed to make choices yourself? I know all those cheesy things they teach you. I don't like them. Because at the end of the day, we're going into somebody's house in residential, and I don't want the customer to ever feel uncomfortable or make them feel like we're forced their way in, because there's a tendency for people to regret the decision later on, because then they can change their mind. So I always look for opportunities to connect. Home cleaning is personal. We're going to go into their house. I want them to like us as a company. It's also just in general for marketing when dealing with consumers. We always try to keep the idea that we're a small company. It's kind of funny because when you start out, you try to look really big, and then once you get big, you try to act like you're really small. So now that we've got this big $4 million company, I still do things like have my kids write thank you notes to the customers because I want them to feel like there's a family behind it, feel comfortable that there's somebody coming into the house who you can know and trust. So we always want to try to make a personal connection. So if somebody throws out they have pets, my people are supposed to ask what type of pet, and then if at all possible, bond over. Oh, cats, I have 5 cats at home. Actually, I have 7 right now. That's a whole discussion. And talk about what you like about it, what you don't like about it. I used to own a doggy daycare, so whenever somebody mentions a dog, I can talk about any breed of dog, because I've had them all through my business, and I know every behavior of every type of dog. So we talk about that. We like to give your dog a treat or whatever. We just want to have a bond with somebody. If they have kids, oh, how old's your kid? Mine are now 16 and 10. So now I can do oh, that's my favorite age. I remember when my daughter was like that. Something that lets you bond. If they're new to the area, how do you like it? Or if they just moved, where'd you move from? Oh, I've always wanted to go to Florida. What's it like? Guys, I've been to Florida like a million times, but I'll act like I've never been to Florida before on the phone sometimes. Or if they've said they came from somewhere I know, like Delray Beach, Florida. Oh, my parents live in Delray. And we'll start talking about it, because I want them to connect with us over something. I see you work at Procter & Gamble. My blank used to work at Procter & Gamble. Oh, you go to OSU? My cousin goes there. So when I'm auditing my people's sales calls, it's literally one of my check items. Did they find something to bond with the customer? Anything. And that's where I think my salesperson, she told you her husband was dead, and you moved on. That was the bonding moment. That was the moment where you missed your opportunity to be a human. Oddly, you did something. That's a whole other discussion. All right. I also strongly believe you should listen and then solve. So good sales is about understanding what the customer needs and explaining it. So you need to listen as much as you talk. People hire a service for different reasons, and part of your goal is to find out why. I know you think you know that's what they're supposed to do is figure out. So we have some questions that we ask, like, were you using a cleaning service previously? Oh, and if you're not, we ask why. Why are you looking for a cleaning service? What's the most important things for you in a cleaning service? We're just trying to find out what do they really care about. Ask enough questions to figure out what the reason is. And only after that do you want to tell them why your company is the solution. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. People are most convinced by things they discover themselves. And this is attributed to Ben Franklin, but I do believe this quote a lot. And the idea behind it is if you tell someone something is true, the tendency is not to believe it. So if you call me and say, the reason why I'm looking for a new cleaning service is my last cleaning service didn't show up twice, we're going to say, oh, we have a 99.99% rate. You're not going to have that problem with us. And the customer is going to be thinking, of course you're going to say that. I just told you that that's my number one concern. So what my people try to do is ask those questions, make a little note of what the customer's looking for, and then through the rest of the sales process, explain to the customer why they're not going to have that problem. So instead of saying, oh, you're not going to have that problem with us, start talking about, well, as a larger company, we have extra cleaners, so we never have a problem with people calling off. And I have somebody in my office whose whole job is to stare at a board all day and make sure people are where they're supposed to be on time. If not, we call them. In smaller companies, that's not the case. There's only one person in the office, and sometimes they have to go clean, sometimes they have to run a vacuum to people. I have somebody whose whole job is to stare at a screen all day and go, Beth, 12 minutes late, why are you not clocked into your job? So we will always know where our cleaners are and make sure we're there. And we say that later in the sales process, so the customer almost forgot when they told us that was their issue. So now they're thinking, I'm not going to have that problem with this company that I have with the previous company. So that is what we try to do to kind of be next level and not just throwing down. So people are most convinced when they discover something themselves. We don't tell them the best. We tell them the things we do that allow them to make the logical conclusion that we are the best. So we give them facts, not opinions, and let them draw their own conclusions. We don't say we're the best cleaning service. Although we've won every award in the city, we say all the things we do to make sure we're the best cleaning service. And we do it later on in the sales process. Now, for this to work, this is kind of tricky, and your salespeople need to have almost an encyclopedic knowledge of the company and the competition. And that can be tricky. It's one of the reasons why I like making my cleaner salespeople, because they know a lot of this stuff just from being in the field. If a customer says, my last company couldn't get this out, they can say, oh, we use these products, and here's why they're good at that. They can also just bond with the customer. Customers like hearing things like, oh, when I used to clean, I always really loved the dogs, or whatever it is. But what we do with our new salespeople is I actually set a 15-minute timer with the salesperson and say, for the next 15 minutes, you need to tell me everything great about the company. You can't use the same thing twice. And this is tricky for them to do at first. And sometimes as the owner, I need to prompt them. But I guarantee you every salesperson can do this with a little bit of help. And we'll start with the obvious things. Oh, we've won the best in Fort Collins 8 years in a row. Okay. What else? What about our training program? Oh, we've got this great training program. What do we do when there's problems with customers? How do we deal with pets? You know, what about the owner's background and story? My wife was a homeless kid in foster care in Fort Collins, and now employs a bunch of people. There's a whole story there about how she cares for the community. And are you able to share that message and that story with the consumer, and not just throw out the same stuff? Because when I do sales audits, pretty much every cleaning company says the same thing. We're the best, here's our price, please go with us. And you all say you're the best, and you can't all be the best. So when you call and somebody can find out what your actual need is, and then serve up a solution to that need, that's when you can really stick out. But they have to really know the company. And sometimes we send our salespeople out in the field for a day. Sometimes we'll put them through a little bit of training because we really want them to have that knowledge. And once again, some of it is understanding the competition. Like, and it's actually kind of funny. All-Star's $3.5 million in revenue, that's my wife's company. They will tell you all the reasons why a big company's the best, all the things I just said. When you call my company, a little tiny reliable, we're trying to catch up. We'll tell you all the reasons why All-Star sucks. Oh, you don't want a big company, it's very impersonal, you're going to get much more personalized attention here, but I'm able to sell both sides of that equation. And it's true, there are advantages to big companies and small companies, and understanding not only your company, but how that's different than the other companies is important. So you can contrast it, your salesperson can contrast it, and explain it.
and ask people, what other cleaning services are you considering? Okay, that is an excellent service. Let me explain some things that we do a little bit different. You know, just to give you an idea, even our companies are named differently. All-Star is the really high-end company. My company, Reliable, our pricing model is All-Star minus 15%. So it's literally the same pricing model minus 15%, but we don't do a lot of the staging and stuff. And it's kind of funny because All-Star, we come in and we really fold everything and we stage the stuffed animals. At Reliable, we don't. I describe Reliable as the McDonald's of cleaning services. We show up, clean your house, we show up when we say we do the same thing every time. It's pretty good. I think it's true. We're not the best cleaning service in the world, but it's aimed that way because we're a little bit cheaper. Reliable is the cleaning service I want. I kid you not, because 7 people, 7 cats, 3 dogs, and 6 bunnies live in my house. I don't care how well you stage it, it looks like a bomb unit by the time I got home. So the last thing I want is somebody fluffing my pillows and charging me for it. I am also not somebody who likes my bed made. I'm not. When I get to the hotel, the first thing I do is rip the bed out because I feel like I'm trapped in there. So Reliable is the service I want. My house is never going to be perfect. I just really don't want it to be a biohazard. Now, it's true, universe best. 7 cats, 3 dogs, and 6 rabbits can make, much less the kids.
You're joking.
My house, no, I am not joking.
You're not joking.
Yeah.
No, you're joking.
My house has become an absolute zoo recently. So those are, we seem to keep taking people in. We have a big house, and my son-in-law needed a place to stay, so he's moved in, and a friend of the family needed a place to stay, and they moved in, and they all brought their animals, so yeah, my house has gotten to be crazy. But that's the difference between the two services. If you call me at Reliable, I'm like, oh, you don't want any of that silly staging. Who really cares about it? It's just going to cost you more. When you call All-Star, we're like, oh, when you come home, your pillows are going to be perfect and your magazines are going to be spread because we want you to come into your house and have a magical moment. Neither one is wrong. They're both true. Honestly, an All-Star customer would probably hate my company. And my people probably wouldn't care about All-Star because, once again, I don't care if my house looks magical because it doesn't look that way by the time I get home. And that's what I mean when they just need to have this really encyclopedic knowledge and understand not just your company, but what is different versus the other companies that you can sell against. This is a fun exercise. I recommend you do it, but to get ready for it, I recommend you sit and write everything that makes your company great so that you can prompt your salesperson. And sometimes they don't know. They'll say things like, well, what about our training program? What do you mean, what about our training program? Oh, we do this, and we do this, and we do this, and you have to pass a written test, and you have to clean a house and get checked out, so that your salesperson can feed all that stuff back to the customer. All right, so we try to close every time, and it's not only important to you, it's really important to the customer. I always use this example. I hear this happen all the time. You're on the call, how many square feet is the house? Great, blah, blah, and the price is $172. Kind of awkward. The customer's sitting there going, okay, and then I'll literally hear customers go, I guess I'll call you back, because literally people like, the price is $172, and that's the last thing they say. It's awkward. Closing is a natural part of the conversation. Sometimes when I tell people you need to always close, they feel like I'm being pushy. I'm not. I'm wanting you to end the freaking thought. And the price is $172 is awkward. The price is $172. Would you like to schedule service? I mean, that's not even a very effective close, but at least we finished the thought. When you just hang there, it's awkward. And when you do that with your salespeople, or they hear it, they're like, oh yeah, that is weird. Like, yeah, finish the sentence, people. You know, get to the next step. So I like to go over a couple different types of closes that I like to use. Assumptive close is pretty basic. That's where you assume they've already made the decision to book and you move to the next logical question. So that is, the price is $172. Is there a specific day you want to schedule your appointment? The customer's uncomfortable, they're going to tell you. Another good example is my next opening is Tuesday. Does that work for you? Whatever your process is, just assume they're ready. Throw a day out, make a suggestion. Assume they're ready for the next step. The choice close is one. Once again, people like to feel like they have a little bit of control, so we like to offer them a choice instead of, so how does Tuesday work for you? Do you prefer morning or afternoon or right time? You said you wanted Friday every other week. Do you prefer to start this Friday or next Friday? So we're giving the customer a little bit of choice so that they feel like they've got a little bit of choice in that. Because once again, people like to can be really effective, especially if it's true. Use an upcoming event to close the deal. Example is, we'll be cleaning your neighbor on Tuesday. Can we schedule you the same day? I have a last minute opening tomorrow. I can offer you a discount of 15% or $15 if you book this Wednesday. So something like that. Some type of impending event, a special, an offer, something like that. So those are 3 really simple closes that you can teach your salesperson. Assumptive is probably the easiest. Great, our next opening is, do you want it? My favorite is this next one, but it takes a really good, experienced salesperson, but when it's good, it is good. It's my favorite. And that's the building close. And the idea behind the building close is you ask a series of smaller questions. So it's kind of like the assumptive close, but the assumptive close is, great, so do you want to schedule Tuesday? The building close starts with these series of questions where the customer is booking and they almost don't realize it. And what I mean by that is, all right, are there any special products you want used in your house? And is there anything you would want us to touch? Family heirlooms, pictures hung with thumbtacks, anything like that? And do you normally prefer mornings or afternoons? And which day of the week do you prefer? Great, what credit card do you want to put on file? The customer just booked. But you never said, do you want to schedule Tuesday? You never kind of forced that moment of, are you going to make a choice, yes or no? You just ask a series of questions to the customer. So, like I said, it sounds like, so the price is $172. Hey, I have a couple other questions to ask you. Are there any special products you like used in your house? Boom, boom, boom. Like I said, when it's done right, it's magical. Because, like I said, the customer almost is like, hangs up and goes, I think I just want to clean this service. I'm not 100% sure, but it kind of feels like that. So, that's the building close. It is my favorite, but I don't recommend it for new salespeople because they stumble. But a really experienced salesperson does this really, really, really well. And you can figure out what series of questions you want to ask. But what we do is we take some of the questions that normally you ask after they say yes, and we just move it before. Because most of us say, do you want to book on Tuesday? You'll say, great. Hey, do you want mornings or afternoons? And do you care about the products we use? We just kind of move those more innocuous questions up front. And the next thing we know, we go, what credit card do you want to use to pay for this service? That's our last question. At no point did we say, are you scheduling on Tuesday? We just said, so do you like Tuesdays? At morning or afternoon? Okay, well, credit card. We'll see you next Tuesday, 3 p.m. All right, overcoming objections. I've already talked about this a little bit, in that I don't like a lot of the really sleazy objection things that can overcome. I don't like it when, like I said, people do things like say, I'm not allowed to make the choice. I don't even really like when you're too pushy about the when we make a decision by. People don't like to feel cornered. The only technique that I really like for overcoming objections is what I call feel, felt, fact. This was definitely taught to me in Proctor. This was a gauging technique. And the idea is, I understand how you feel. I'm validating your objection is true. Others have felt that way. Once they used our service, they found out they were wrong. So, feel, felt, fact. And what that looks like is, in this example, acknowledge the concern is real. Let them know they're not the only one, but tell them gently that they're wrong. I understand what you feel. Others felt that way too. They were wrong. And so this is an example. I understand how you feel about the hourly rate. My wife and I felt the same way when we hired our first cleaning service. We found that professional cleaners have much better training and tools, so while the hourly rate may seem higher, the actual price to clean the house was very reasonable, especially when we took into account protections of workers' comp, liability insurance, that they had to build the price. We also came to learn that paying a little bit more means the company pays their employees more, which means better, fewer cleaners in my house. Feel? Felt, found. I understand that $65 an hour might sound high to you. Others felt that way too. When they called our competition, they discovered that's actually kind of what the rate is. So there's various versions of this, but that is my favorite way to overcome objections. It doesn't work on everything. Like I said, if somebody says I need to think about it, I need to talk to my husband, I don't try to remove that stuff. Remember how I said I want people to be comfortable? If they want to take some time, cool, take some time. Call my competition and discover they don't answer the phone. Other people disagree with me, I have an 80% close rate for this thing. So it works fine for me, and I don't think my customers hang up the phone and feel uncomfortable. I don't feel like they hang up the phone and go, no, I feel a little dirty after the transaction. I don't want them to ever have that experience. So what if they don't book right? Once again, I don't like to push too hard. We want them to control the speed. They're letting us into their house. I don't want to make them feel like I forced their way into their house. That's just uncomfortable. If you didn't already get it, we always get an email address, and we always send the quote right away. Once again, I notice when I do a lot of reviews, a lot of people don't explain why. It's literally, can I get your email address and your home address? We say, can I get your email address? As soon as I hang up the phone, you're going to get an estimate from me. And can I get your home address? I'm going to look the home up on Zillow so I get an idea of square footage. We're explaining why we need this information. We're not just sounding like a robot asking for it. And then it's really important that we send them an estimate immediately using the templates we provided in our information packet. We want them to hang up the phone and be like, wow, I got an estimate. We want it to be that fast. And same thing with my remodel company. My salesperson isn't allowed to leave without giving me an estimate. Nothing's more annoying than you invite somebody out to your home and they say they're going to get you an estimate and you never get it. So my people can physically not leave the property without writing an estimate. And it's a rule because it's a stupid thing when somebody thinks they're getting an estimate and they don't. And this is in this presentation, but this is also something else that I always coach my salespeople on. Finish the job that you're on. I am as much a salesperson as anybody else in the world, but I would rather you finish the customer that you're booking or the customer that you're quoting, finish all the steps, fill out all the paperwork, and miss a call, and take 2 calls and not remember the one you already talked to. So that's a big deal for me, is finish the job you're on. Don't rush the job you're off to get to the phone. If your people aren't answering the phone in a timely enough manner, you need to look at another solution, virtual assistants, more people in the office, phone trees of who backs who up. But I never want my people to jump off something from the next one, especially if it's a sold customer. I can't tell you the number of times somebody will have a customer they sold and then talk to 2 more people on the phone and go, I don't remember what day we were looking here for. And then they have to go back, and unfortunately we record our calls. Then they have to go back and listen to the recordings. That's a huge waste of time. Finish the job. All right, so closing the sale, just like the process of getting the prospect to give you a quote, just like you have to call people a lot of times to get them on the phone, sometimes you have to reach out to people multiple times after. Several cleaning services I know, including my own, send people an email a year after saying, your quote is about to expire. We book about 1 job a month off of our email 1 year after. So we reach out to people 1 year after we give them a quote and sometimes book things. And the reason why is stuff just changes. I remember when my wife and I first looked at hiring a cleaning service. We were working at Procter & Gamble at the time, and I was 25 years old, making pretty good money, and we decided to get a cleaning service. We got a price of $90. But at the time, we were like, that is got to be kidding me. For $90, I'm going to clean my own house, thank you very much. And we hung up the phone and never talked to the company again. 3 years later, we had a baby, and we were quoted $120. And we were all over the cleaning service at that point, because how we value our time had changed radically versus when we were 2 single people with no kids, no dogs, no responsibilities. Once I had a baby, I would pay just about anything to sleep. So things change. The other thing, if you remember my example up above, if somebody chose another company, I did a whole presentation on this a little while ago and pulled some data from one of the big software in our residential cleaning industry. 37% of customers were canceling their cleaning service within the first 3 months. So even if they use another cleaning service, there's a 1 out of 3 chance that they end up deciding the cleaning service they use sucked. So keep reaching out to them because they might decide that your quote that was a little more expensive, now they remember that little pitch about sometimes paying a little bit more means you get a better cleaner. Of course you say that, I'm going to go use the cheap cleaner. And then they call you back, well, I think I'm ready to pay a little bit more because I used the cheap cleaner experience and it wasn't a good one. So the next step is we always say we want to measure, market, and improve. Sales is a bit of an iterative process, and it's not always going to be the same. What's going to work is going to depend partially against who you're up against. This has actually been fascinating for me when I own cleaning companies in different cities, because what works for us in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is a college town, is very different versus what works in Cincinnati, Ohio. And sometimes it's things different about the company. Fort Collins, Colorado is a very liberal town, and we are a green company, and we are very LGBT friendly. We are a very liberal company. My cleaning company in Cincinnati, Ohio is the hometown of Procter & Gamble. We use Mr. Clean, and Swiffer, and all the P&G products, and all that type of stuff, because that's what works in those markets. So you've got to kind of learn what works and what you're up against and vary a little bit by market. And I will say the one market that absolutely kicked my butt was Portland, Oregon. As a boy who grew up in Texas and was raised, spent most of my time in the Midwest, I just could never. I've been successful everywhere I've run a cleaning service except Portland, Oregon, but I could not make it work in that market. I did not understand the customers, they didn't understand me. It was a cultural thing, it just didn't work. So it's funny that even sometimes things don't work in every market. There are some important people. So track your conversion rate at each step of the sales process. Lead to quote, quote to booked, one time to reoccurring, and then booking to 3-month cleaning. So we want to see what percentage of leads do we actually get to talk to, what percentage of people do we actually quote to book, what percentage of the people that we book do we get as a one-time, and then how many do we have 3 months later. We look at each of those different spots because those are kind of inflection points to let us know what the problem is. And it's not always what you think it is. Lead to quote can be bad because you're buying lousy leads. You know, if you're paying for some lead generation services like Yelp, in my experience, a lot of times those leads are very hard to reach. So the lead conversion rates can vary by what the source is. But knowing where you're losing them in the process helps us tighten up. And the other thing that's most important, once again, is to try to beat your own number. People always ask me, what should my numbers be? I don't know who your competition is. What I want your numbers to be is to get better. Whatever it is this month, I guarantee you can be better next month, a little bit better the month after. As long as the number's heading in the right direction, I almost don't care what the base is. I just want it to constantly be getting a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better. And it's really fascinating. If you get a little bit better every month at the end of the year, you'll be somewhere like that. So don't try to fix it all at once. Experiment with your process. Small improvements can make big changes on the end results. Adding that email at a year got us 1 extra customer a month. That doesn't sound like much, but 1 extra customer a month is 12 extra customers a year at an average value of a customer of $3,600. Adds about 50 grand in revenue by adding 1 email to the process. So tweak with it. Figure out what works best for you. Once again, this is where things vary a little bit. Our emails in Fort Collins are very different than our emails in Cincinnati, Ohio. They're much more personal. They're much more, hey, I'm out of the market today. In Cincinnati, we're much more corporate. I don't know why. It just seems to work better. It could be that because there's somebody who already owns that niche of the very personal company in Cincinnati. Track your conversion rates by lead source, by person, and see what happens and where the tweaks need to be made. This is always fascinating for us. Like I said, not everything's the same. Yelp, in my experience, has had a worse conversion rate because I don't know if you've ever asked for a quote for Yelp, but when you ask for a quote on Yelp, it helpfully sends it to 3 other companies. So unless the customer opts out of it, they might not have been really wanting a quote from your company. You may have been one of the add-on companies. So I'm not saying not to use it, but know what the conversion rate is. Because if you're getting a bunch of Yelp leads, you can't exactly yell at your salespeople if they don't have the same conversion rates. You know, things like paying for Google AdWords have a lower conversion rate. So if you're in a really busy period of time and you have all your paid marketing turned off, I would expect your conversion rate to be higher. Because all you're doing is answering the phone and looking at people who are proactively calling. Once I start paying for leads, I'm expecting my conversion rate to go down because they're lower quality leads. Does that make sense? So you have to know where your leads are coming from to be fair to your salespeople. And sometimes you have to buy leads. I don't want your takeaway to go, Derek says these lead sources have lower conversion rates. They do, but if the phone's not ringing, you need to buy them because you need to make the phone ring. But you need to understand where the leads are coming from to be fair to your salespeople. And then it's always fascinating to me to compare between different people. I use Lead Central in my company. One of the reasons why I love it is because it literally says on the report, here's the conversion rate for by salesperson. And that really helps me figure out which salesperson might or might not have a problem. And then once again, try to improve it, tweak it, understand the difference, and get better over time. Sales management system. So this was also something that I kind of stole from Proctor. So I like to joke sometimes that a lot of what made me successful in the cleaning service aren't things that I invented. I left a 13-year Procter & Gamble and bought a cleaning service. And when I bought a cleaning service, I didn't know what to do. So I went back to my old Procter & Gamble playbook. And one of the things we used to do at Procter & Gamble is once a quarter, your boss would show up and do a ride with you in the field. And you'd come audit what you did. So when I started doing phone sales, it was perfectly natural. Of course I hired my salespeople. Not many people do this, but that's what we did at Procter & Gamble. Your boss would show up and he'd go out with you and see how you sold for a day. So we do monthly follow-up with our salespeople. And I have my salespeople pull 2 calls every single month for me. I ask them to pull a call where they want to show up. And I want them to pull a call where they think they have to. So literally, we have a little notepad by their desk, and if they hang up the phone and go, killed that one, I want to show off, they'll write down the phone number and the time to call so I can pull it. Vice versa, if they hang up the call and go, well, that one, I need a little bit of help. I want them to write that down. And then what I do is I'll randomly pull a 3rd call. Then I'll score it, and we sit down and review the 3 calls together. We talk about what they did great. We talk about what we think they can do better on. We talk about ideas to improve. This is where sometimes I learn about all the things I haven't told them about. Because they'll, the one I just did recently with my group of people where I was reviewing the sales calls of my person, the customer was talking about, I have hard water stains on my sink, can you remove those? And he's like, well, we'll do our best, moving on. And I was like, oh, dude, you completely blew that question. So that's when I knew my salesperson had never been trained on our chemicals, because the answer should have been, oh yeah, we use Citrusol. Citrusol removes limescale, but instead he's like, we'll try really hard, because he didn't have the knowledge. So that's how I figured out that he didn't have the knowledge, was by reviewing the call, and it gave me an opportunity to go, so apparently, Colton, we've never talked to you about our cleaning products. Let's go to the closet together, and let's talk about what's in there and what they get used for. So next time somebody says, my last cleaning service couldn't get the hard water out of my sink, your answer isn't, I'm going to try really hard. It's, well, we might not be able to either, but here's the products we will use, which is important so that people know. And then this is an example of a score sheet that we use with our people. We will go through and ask them questions like, well, this is, not ask them questions, but how many rings were there before we answered? If it didn't answer and it went to voicemail, how long did it take us for us to call them back? Did the representative give their name? Did they give the name of the company? That's important to me. Were they pleasant, easy to understand? Did they match the speed of the person who was speaking? Did they ask what type of service they were interested in? Did they give the contact information? Did they ask good clarifying questions? Did they inquire about the preferences? Was the rep knowledgeable about the company's pricing and offers? Was the rep able to explain how the service will be delivered? Did the rep attempt to make some type of personal connection? Example, I have dogs, to accommodate. Did they talk about your preferences? How well did they handle a price objection? How well did they handle an availability objection? So these are some scripts and things that we've used in the past just to find out what kind of score people on to put together a score sheet and compare it. And then, like I said, we'll sit down with the salesperson and talk about here's what you did good, here's what you did bad. So what this looks like in totality when we do it is my people have a series of questions they ask. Hi, can I get your name, your phone number, your address? I can look it up in Zillow. I need an email address. I'm going to send you an estimate as soon as we get off the phone. Great. I'm going to ask you some information about your house that'll help me get a price. How many square feet? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? How many people live there? How many pets do you have? Oh, you have a dog? What type of dog? Down that rabbit hole for a couple minutes. And then we say, while I'm working on your price, do you have any questions? Now, I use software. Your price is sitting there the minute you tell me all of those things. But we always make it sound like we have a calculator. While I'm working on your price, do you have any questions? We want the customer at this point to be able to ask questions. Sometimes they'll ask enough questions that let us show off, so we don't need to do our pitch. But if they don't have any questions, that's when we'll do great. Well, real quickly, while I'm working on your price, let me give you a little background on the company. So now we're going to tell you some things about the company that dealt with whatever thing made you unhappy with your previous service. So this is where we're going to circle back and go, great, let me tell you a little background on the company. Here's how things work, and here's how we make sure our cleaners show up on time, and here's how we manage quality. Like Debbie, once we sell you, we do also move into a process where we explain things like, great, just want to be perfectly clear. We are a cleaning company. That means we are humans doing things. Just like you occasionally send an email and then a minute later go, oops, we're occasionally going to miss something in your house, but we want you to be happy. So if anything bad ever happens, call us, let us know. We're going to jump right on it. We're humans, but we really do care and we want to do a great job. We also move into a process where we have to set the customer up to understand that we're not always going to show up exactly when they want. Unfortunately, in Colorado, we blame the snow. Hey, every now and again, something's going to happen like snow. and we're gonna have to reschedule your house. When that happens, are there any days you prefer we not come, any times? So we're kind of already kind of scouting out a little bit, that if I ever do need to forcibly reschedule you, how do you feel about that? And we're kind of getting that type of stuff up front. So that's part of managing the expectations. So that's kind of how we wrap all of that together. So, any questions? I have a couple more slides at the end. I want to ask a couple more questions before I get to my slide. Go ahead.
We have a lot of online bookings, so we're getting prices online, and we're really struggling to get those folks on the phone. Do you have any tips on that? And I don't know if you would actually count that as your sell a lead, or if that's actually been quoted, because they haven't really, I feel like they haven't been given enough.
Sure. So, I mean, his question was, he does a fair amount of online booking, and he has a hard time getting him on the phone. We make it real clear that we need to talk to him, and we're like, hey, we saw you book online, we've got some questions we've got to get answered before we come out. Because the online booking sometimes doesn't give us a lot of key details, like how are we getting in, and things like that. So we just let them know that it's a requirement. Honestly, this is once again where things tend to be a little bit different. Online booking never really took off for us in Fort Collins. My sister-in-law's company in Denver does a lot more online booking. Why does that 1 hour make a big difference?
My question is more the online quote. They didn't book, but they got the price.
Okay, so you got the online quote, didn't book them. That's a cold lead. That's going to have a lower conversion rate. Sometimes they don't want to talk to you, so do your best to convert it. But sometimes they're like me and my ex-wife, where we just wanted to know what does a cleaning service cost, and now that we know, no thank you, you're never going to sell us. So I do think you can move that conversion rate some, and I do think a good follow-up process is going to help. But sometimes people are just curious on the price, and that's okay. It's also why we try to get the contact information before we give them the price so we can follow up. That's the downside of online booking, is it has a lower close rate. I would make sure that your website sells everything about your company before they get to that price. You know, if the only thing you ever give a customer is the price, don't be surprised if the only way they judge you is the price. So if there's a way to change it, what I would do is try to do the same thing. Hey, while we're calculating your price, here's a little information on the company. And then give them the price. Try to get some benefits in there somehow. See if you can tweak it, which is some of the stuff we've done. Any other questions? Go ahead.
He has a lot of great ideas and how to prepare themselves. In your experience, how do you teach yourself? Do you do blue videos? Do you have someone teaching everyone else?
So we do most of our sales training kind of on the job. They normally shadow for a day, and then we will give them some simple follow-up calls. Normally, the first thing a salesperson does is, hey, you had a cleaning yesterday, are we going to get you booked on regular service because it's a little bit easier? And then we put them on a call with a live person. We normally tell people, hey, you know, it's my first day selling on my own, so you're on a 3-way call with my trainer today, and go from there. But no, that's my preference. And then, like I said, I just try to download information. We go through the employee manual, we go to the cleaning module. We try to make sure they've got as much information as they can. And then there's that iterative process of following back. All right, well, I have a couple more slides I want to throw in real quick, just FYI. I've done variations of this presentation a lot over the years, and what multiple people have eventually gotten back to me on is they've all said, hey, that thing where you talk about reviewing the calls with your salespeople, that's a great idea, but I never actually do it. Can you do it for me? And I've been asked that a lot, so my wife and I actually just are launching a new company called Sales Superhero. It is a beta. What I mean by that is I am looking for a group of people where I'm going to have to spend a lot more time on it and kind of work out the bugs, so we're going to offer a discount. Eventually, this is going to be a form you can fill out. Like, I've been doing this for my sister-in-law's company and my brother's company. One of the things I figured out is I got to know a lot about your company and coach your salespeople. I've got to know what your selling points are. I've got to know, in All-Star, we want to book you on the next day when you're